Oh, yes. Welcome to You Bleeping Nerds, UBN, the podcast where we break down anime episodes, give you a little anime news, webtoon news, comic book news, sci-fi books, whatever. It's a podcast about nerd stuff. We're Bleeping Nerds. I am your host, the captain. It's your boy A. How y'all been, man? You guys been okay? Y'all good, man? Y'all been eating? I hope so. Your pocket's straight, you know what I'm saying? I hope everybody out there is having a wonderful time. Today, we bring you episode review, baby. Episode review. Kaiju number 8. Episode 21, season 2. Omen. Another goodie for you. I like this episode. I love Kaiju number 8. You know what I'm saying? One of the best. I don't think it's the best reoccurring anime right now. I give that to my sweet baby Dandadan, and they probably foot it in once that comes back. But Dandadan's my jam right now. But we ain't talking about Dandadan. Talk about Kaiju number 8, episode 21, Omen. We're gonna get into some serious things, but before we get into all that, like us, subscribe us, like us on all the things. You can find us at You Bleepin' Nerd. On YouTube, you can find us on Spotify, You Bleepin' Nerds. Anywhere you get your podcast, you can find us. Follow our socials at Bleepin' Nerd on X. You could join the Reddit, You Bleepin' Nerds, UBN. I don't have any more socials. I probably should get some more. Yeah, probably. We'll have more socials, and you can subscribe to all those too. We'll get us an IG at some point and all that fun stuff. Blue Sky and all that cool stuff, threads. But subscribe to us on all the things, man. Really appreciate you guys coming to hang out with me today. Before we actually get into the episode review, I've decided that we're going to give us a new little segment. It's called Bleepin' News. Bleepin' News of the day. Which is, I like to keep up with the industry. I like to consider myself a hobby journalist, a journalist hobbyist when it comes to anime. I like to know what the hell's going on, around my passion. And I think once a show, I'm going to bring you a little news. So here's the unveiling of our new segment, Bleeping News. Bleeping News. All right, that's the intro. We don't have a production value around here, so that is the production value. All right, Bleeping News of the day. Might shock some of you guys, but Demon Slayer. Yeah. I mean, of course. What else was it gonna be, right? What else was it gonna be, right? Yeah, Demon Slayer Infinity Castle. That's right, Infinity Castle now is king. It now holds the United States box office opening weekend record. It's $70 million for an anime. It is number one anime opening weekend box office in U.S. history. Over the opening 3 days, $70 million. $386 million worldwide. Demon Slayer dominating. Just putting up the numbers. Mugen Train is at 513. My article, check out my article, not my article, but the article that I'm quoting from, Anime Corner, Chike, to me the best industry business reporter in the game, period. No disrespect to anybody else. I just think Chike is just the man. He's the best over there. When it comes to following the industry itself, check out his other articles too. He does a lot of interviews with executives from Crunchyroll and things like that. He's really got his finger on the pulse. I'd love to have you, Chike. If somebody, get this to Chike. Hey, if you want to be on my podcast, please. I'd love to have this guy on. But go read his article. Demon Slayer puts on the crown. Infinity Castle's wearing the crown. Number one anime box office in the U.S. for an opening weekend. 70 million. The previous record holder was, shout out to Pokemon the first movie. I was in theaters for that one. Yeah, 26 years ago. It's a 26-year-old record that just fell for Pokemon the first movie. Held that record since 1999. Uh, it came in at $31 million in '99. So when you adjust for inflation, it's about $60 million. Demon Slayer came in at 70. So even with inflation, Demon Slayer came in on top. But shout out to Pokemon. 31 million dollar 3-day box office back in 1999. Shout out to them, and shout out to Demon Slayer. We're seeing this more and more. This is becoming more of a trend in anime. Animated storytelling. We're seeing the movies, right? We're seeing episodes of movies. You saw the Dan to Dan Evil Eye movie. You saw obviously Mugen Train before this. You got the Jujutsu Kaisen movie coming out, Execution in theaters. Others, I think the Attack on Titan 2 had a box office release. Economically and publicity wise, it makes total sense, right? You get that extra bite at the financial apple when you're coming to the box office. You get $300 million or whatever worldwide in theaters and things like that. It's great for the studios, great for the networks, good for the health of the industry that is getting more cash infusion from having a box office release. I think it's really good for promotional terms too, right? When you have a worldwide box office release, obviously you have some kind of notoriety, or otherwise you wouldn't have a successful release. But it continues to promote anime as a serious outfit. You're going to see more of these things if they continue to do well, because it's good for the movie theaters. There's more movies that more people, particularly young people, are coming out to see. And so that kind of industrial synergy, I think, is been kind of fascinating to see grow over the years. You've got the Dragon Ball Z movies, particularly the contemporary ones, F and all those superheroes, I think. Things like that. Those movies coming out in theaters, they did okay. I don't think they did that great in theaters, but yeah, Demon Slayer. Great job, Demon Slayer. It's good to see my passion, my love, the industry of anime doing well worldwide. Huge box office release. We wish those guys well. Good job, Demon Slayer. Great job. But moving on from the news, moving on from Demon Slayer's record-breaking weekend release, we're going to jump into this episode. We're going to jump into this episode review. Kaiju number 8, episode 21, Omen, season 2. And we open up with, Shinami Noya gets Kafka's phone back after 2 months. I can't go 2 months without my phone, so good on you, Kafka. But she gets his phone back. He's been cleared. The defense industry trusts him now, so he can get his phone back. And she tells him, like, "Hey, why don't you call the team, call the squad, call the boys? They probably miss you. They want to hear from you, particularly Reno. So he sits in his room, he contemplates it for a while, and here where we get to see again what I've dubbed the human behind the monster when it comes to Kafka, where obviously he's Kaiju number 8, but we're seeing his insecurities again, right? We're getting a look at his humanity, where the last time he talked to those guys, he was walked off in handcuffs. He saved them from the attack on Kaiju number 10 at Tachikawa base, and that was it. That was the last time he's heard from any of those guys. He hasn't been allowed to have contact with them, so he has some trepidation, right? He has some insecurities on, how this is gonna go, right? He has a ton of guilt for lying about his abilities, his kaiju powers. He has a ton of guilt for not talking to them since then and have been able to explain himself. And he's just afraid that these comrades, his friends in arms that he's grown close to, he doesn't know how they feel about him. He hasn't heard from them forever, in a couple of months since that last major incident. He turns on the phone, just kind of ease himself into it. He's got a ton of messages. I think it's 500 messages. He got a ton of messages. And, the doubts creep in. Do they think I'm a monster? Do they think I'm a liar? Or are they scared of me? Right? That's a bad feeling when the people that you love are scared of you, as a monster. That can't be a good feeling, right? It's not a good feeling. And while he's contemplating this, call comes through. It's Reno's phone. Kafka goes to answer it, ends up hanging up on him. Hey, look, I'm gonna shoot Kafka some bail on that one. I do that shit all the time. Look, my bad, y'all. Okay? It's just an accident. Okay? He didn't mean it. I don't mean it. Like, it just happens. Okay? I hit my finger. It's a touchscreen, man. But Kafka knows he fucked up. Another call comes through. It's from Miharu. He ends up picking this one up, and it's Reno on the other side. And again, I'm gonna shoot Reno some bail. How you gonna pick up for him and not me? Kikaru is probably the one who told Reno that he had his phone back. That's probably why he was the first one to call. How you gonna hang up on me? Because it's not like you just ignored my call, let it go to voicemail. No, you shut my shit down, and then you pick up for Iharu. Like, I too would have felt some type of way about that. You know what I'm saying? And then Reno immediately just launches into dude, man. Just launches into dude. Where have you been? Like, we be out here missing you. It was really cute. It was really cute. He explains how, we haven't talked to you, brother. We miss you. Kafka apologizes, basically saying, like, look, man, I didn't know how y'all felt about me. Because last time we talked, the block was kind of hot. They didn't walk me away in handcuffs. I've revealed the monster within to you. And I don't know, and I had no idea if you were going to accept me. I didn't know if you guys were scared of me or even wanted to even see me again, let alone miss me, Iharu coming in, it's the heart. My guy, he's been having a good season. He's saying, like, fucking course we're scared of you. You are a fucking monster. You get like this hollow Ichigo mask over your face, and you have like electric thunder, like you can thunder punch like a Pikachu. And yeah, no one knew you could do that. Like, nobody knew you could do that. So of course we're scared of you, but just because we're afraid of the kaiju in you doesn't mean we don't love the man you are. And I thought that was well said by Iharu. Like I said, my man's having a great season. And this is another shining example in Kaiju number 8 of, to me, the most important thing in the story, which is relationships between people. Renu missed his friend. He missed his friend. He was the first, the minute that phone got charged and Renu's call came through, he missed his friend. He got on him like, man, why have you even gone this long without talking to me? That's not acceptable. Like, I thought we were supposed to be crew. The connection between these guys, between Kafka and Reno, between Reno and Iharu, and the like, it's a beautiful thing, right? There's the vulnerability. Like, these two have a lot to catch up on. They do. They have a lot to catch up on. Like, they've both learned a lot. They both trained a lot. Both circumstances have changed. I think Reno knows now about Kafka not being able to transform back if he overdoes it. And Kafka knows now about Reno getting the number 6 weapon suit. So these guys have parallels going on in their lives. And the connection between those two, the depth, the solidness of that relationship was reinforced here. And I love seeing stuff like that, right? Because between all the beautiful technology and the monsters and the cool designs and the fight scenes and all that stuff's beautiful, right? All that stuff's great. I love that stuff. But ultimately, I think that stuff always comes down to that's candy. That's candy. That's icing in the cake, right? Where those relationships, the bond between these two characters, the emotional connection between these characters, all of the characters in the squadrons, to me, that's the vegetables, that's the steak, that's the spinach, that's the nutrition of a show like this, of any show like this. And this is just another beautiful example of it. So great job there, Kaiju number 8. Really, really loved that. After he gets the riot act read to him by Reno, like, hey man, don't be doing me. No, after he gets the riot act read to him by Reno, we move on. We move on to another training scene between Kafka and Hoshino. We're seeing Kafka getting stronger. We're seeing Kafka, grow and progress. The squadron style he's been training in. Kikaru talks about, she saw her father doing that every day. She also gave him a little shade too, like, good for you since you ain't got no weapon. It's just like, had to throw him a little shade there. It's all good. Kafka's gonna come back like, motherfucker, I am the weapon. Nah. But yeah, he's training with Hoshino, laying some powers on the punching bag. Sorry about that, folks. Alarm goes off at 11:30 every day. I forgot that it was got to go off. Sorry about that. But yeah, back to what we were talking about. Training scene between Hoshino and Kafka. Kafka lands some shot, landing a powerful punch, horse stance, whoa, pow, right into the punching bag with Hoshino. Hurt him a little bit, right? We see Kafka's getting stronger, right? And also Kafka, thick boy, right? That's a thick boy. So I bet that punch has some oomph behind it. That thing has some weight behind it, man. So Kafka, lands that punch, hurts Hoshino a little bit. Hoshino being my petty god, being my petty god, my petty king, had to hit him with that 6-inch punch to break Kafka's liver open. So, Hoshino being my petty lord, my petty god. Love him, love Hoshino. But we're seeing the progression. We're seeing Kafka's progression. We're seeing him get stronger. I can't wait to see them how they utilize all this training. On top of his Kaiju number 6, that it'll be cool to see how his fighting style evolves after all of this. But yeah, Kafka. He's he. What am I trying to say? Kafka, with all his insecurities, he's still fighting, right? He's fighting. He's trying to grow. He is growing. One thing I do love about him is that he's a very vulnerable character, right? The human inside the monster is very, very apparent with Kaiju. With Kaiju number 8 with Kafka, he's so vulnerable and he doubts himself and he's scared, and all these different forces around him come together to kind of prop him up and reinforce him, to encourage him to grow. And I think that's a beautiful thing. I think that's an absolute beautiful thing. So now we're gonna move into the part of the episode that I have dubbed here. Hold on one second. I have dubbed here 5 kaijus. Holy fucking shit. Yeah. 5 kaiju. Holy fucking shit. 5 different kaiju are sighted across Japan basically at the same time. Never happens. Never happened before. Terrifying in itself. They all seem like they are part of number 9's creations. They're more intelligent, more humanoid. Pretty much they're all humanoid kaiju. None of them are animalistic. You got, hungry fish kaiju who just ate the whole ocean. You got killer ballerina who, she's very pretty and pink and, murderous. We're going to get to that. We go happy go runny on the highway kaiju. He just want to run fast. He seemed like a happy boy. You got block face kaiju, you know what I'm saying? Because it's just a block with a bunch of faces. So I just call them block face. Block face kaiju. Who knows what that thing does? But yeah, they're all creepy. I think they're cool, very different looking. So interested to see what these kaiju can do. I'm really excited to see the power set on each one of these kaiju. If you guys listen to the Friday show, we are recovering Dandadan. Right now in Dandadan, they've got their own little kaiju fight situation. Go check out the Friday episode. Go watch Dandadan. And to see what we're talking about. And, I talked about how I loved how that kaiju looked, right? It looked very different, right? It had a very cool, unique design. I thought the power set was interesting for it. I was loving that kaiju fight. This is going to be crazy here in Kaiju number 8. I'm just telling you now, like, this is going to be so crazy. If you know what happens, if you read the manga, hey, thanks for listening. Love having you here. You know what I'm saying? Appreciate you knowing what's going to happen and still checking out my podcast. But this is an anime-only podcast. Like I said, there's only so many hours in the day. You feel me, y'all? Only so many hours in a day. So this is an anime-only podcast. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm really looking forward to it. We got everything's being set up right now with the cadets, not cadets, the newer recruits training, getting stronger. The number of weapon suits now being unsealed and prepared, and we're clearly preparing for the clash, right? We're clearly preparing for the big old smasheroo, the mashup, the battle. And I can't wait. I can't wait. I obviously this is an action anime. Some of the action from season 1 is some of the most beautiful fight scenes that I've seen in all my years watching anime and loving this art. It's so beautiful. The animation gets better and better every year, every generation. It is just it's just super cool, man. It's super cool to watch those fight scenes. When Kaiju number 8 last season punched the number 10 bomb away from Tachikawa base, it was literally electric. Absolutely electric. Spine tingling. I felt it in my soul, electric. So can't wait to see what happens when we all start to get busy here. And we're going to get busy, man. We're going to get busy. Number nine is up to no good, baby. And he said the last time we saw him, he said, next time you see me, Age of Kaiju will have begun. And we're on the precipice of that. And I can't wait. Oh, boy, I can't wait. But moving on to part 3. Definitely my favorite part of the episode is the rooftop conversation between Captain Ashiro and Kafka. Kafka obviously being old childhood friends, having feelings for Ashiro. This is the main driving motivation of our protagonist in this show. Say it with me, guys. Stories are about relationships with people. Good job, bleeping team. Good job, my bleeping class. Good job. But yeah, stories are about relationships with people, and this is the main relationship in the story with our main character. He comes to the roof with Ashiro. He doesn't know she was there, but she makes him sit down. Sit your ass down. She makes him sit down. And, she just kind of starts to express herself, right? Kafka's just a nervous wreck. He's giggling like an idiot. He was about to make like a weather joke. She was like, look, I'll save you from your own stupid. I'll save you from your old stupid, baby. Don't worry. But, so she kind of starts to, not bare her soul, but kind of just let him know where her mind is, where she remembers him. She remembers during the kaiju alarms throughout the city how he would run over from his school and run up in her class and come and get her, make sure she's safe, which was like super cute, and how he made her feel back then with his leadership, his kindness, his smiles, and Kafka honestly is just sitting there like my dog Ghost, and he's just getting his tummy rubbed, like, oh yeah, like love me, baby, don't you love me, baby, like, oh yeah. He even said, he was like, hey man, Kid Me sounds pretty fucking dope, doesn't he? Kid Me sounds like the man. Like, cause I don't know about if I could do that now. Kid Me sound like the one. And shout out to Kafka's voice actor. The way he delivered that line, it was like it had like a little bit of that lecherousness. Like, hey, I was the man. What? I ain't even know. Shout out to his voice actor. I think he delivered that in Japanese very beautifully, very very beautifully. But yeah, she lets him know where her head's at. You know, talking about looking down over the city. How quiet things are, and even though they know war's coming, frankly, like they know major major conflict that Japan, the world's never seen before. Is very much on the way. We're on the precipice of it, and just taking this moment to kind of remind us all what we're really fighting for, which is the people, which is to live, which is to to live and prosper and grow and be human, fighting for humanity against the kaiju, and you got the human kaiju to do it. So nice heart to heart moment. We finally get a nice substantive moment between Ashiro and Kafka. You get more indication that it's pretty clear that she still has some sort of feelings toward him. Taking into account her role, obviously being a captain, being his superior, there's a level of distance she's pretty clearly purposely maintaining there, for a lot of different reasons. But, definitely kind of opening up and showing that, she has a spot in her heart for Kafka. She does love him. He is an inspiration for her. I think this kind of confirms that who he was, and how Kafka was in their friendship as a child, inspired Ashiro to be where she is today. How obviously the plan was always for them to be side by side fighting kaiju, and him being that figure in her life, helped shape her into getting here. And we're getting an example of that. So great conversation, man. Like I said, conversations, right? Relationships between people. Stories about relationships between people. At its core, that's what Kaiju number 8 is. And this is the biggest one, and this is the most important one. And then after that, Killer Ballerina, remember her? Yeah, Killer Ballerina Kaiju. Release her optical illusion form, her light illusion turns into her kaiju form. Got some dudes on the street was trying to holler at her, trying to talk to her, be like, hey, you got friends? And she was like, I sure do. You get to see her, you get to see like she has a giant protruding brain, and she's wearing like a dress, but she doesn't have a face. She looks like an evil Shuckle from Pokemon. She looks like a demonic Shuckle from Pokemon. And like she just impales the whole entire city block. The entire city block gets impaled. So she giant reverberating roar through the city. And see you next week, folks. And that's how the episode ends. As I stated before, I know I have it written down here still. Holy fuck. That's holy fuck. It's finna get real, y'all. It's finna get all the way that way. It's finna get so crazy. Like I said, we have the 5 kaiju that we saw before. And who knows what the hell else is coming. I got a feeling it's gonna get pretty wild. But in summation, overall, solid episode. A lot of character development. We had a lot of conversations, right? We had a lot of conversations. We didn't really have any action at all until the very end of the episode. But to me, these aren't, like, I know some people who talk about episodes like this, like these are filler episodes. And one of my favorite podcasters that I listen to, Joanna Robinson at The Ringer, has this phrase that she says all the time, and I couldn't agree more, which is character development and plot development is not filler, right? Character relationships is not filler. Character depth is not filler. This is a development episode. This was an episode, again, shows the continued progress of Kafka, showing the training between Gin and, Kikoro, showing Isao, Commander Shinomiya, resisting inside Kaiju number 9, right? Which is probably why he had such a strong rejection response after he absorbed him. We're seeing, the development between the redevelopment of the relationship between Ashiro and Kafka, the redevelopment between the relationship between Reno and Kafka and Iharu. This was an episode about their bonds and what they're fighting for, right? I think this is the perfect kind of episode to kind of prime you. It's the calm before the storm. It's clearly the calm before the storm episode before all kaiju hell's about to break loose. And I thought it was good. This is why we do it, baby. Kaiju number 8, and now that we got all that good nutritious stuff, baby, we're gonna get us a sugar high next week. But that's next week. The battle starts next week. Check in with us Monday next week for the next episode of Kaiju number 8. Check in with us Friday, where we're covering Dandadan season 2. That's Dandadan has been the most consistently great thing, I think, over the last 2 years, definitely over the last season. Anime of the year candidate for sure. It was a candidate last year. I think this season is even better than last season. I think they've really stepped it up. Shout out to the Hayase. That shit was cool. But that is the end of Kaiju number 8, episode 21, season 2, Omen breakdown. And thank you for listening to You Bleeping Nerds. We do this 2 times a week right now, Monday and Friday. Monday, we're covering Kaiju number 8. Friday, we're covering Dandadan. Thank you guys for watching listening to You Bleeping Nerds, UBN. And I'll catch you guys Friday for that Dandadan breakdown. Join all the socials. Subscribe on the things. Twitter, Bleeping Nerd on X. Join the Reddit, You Bleeping Nerds. Subscribe to the podcast, Spotify. Subscribe everywhere. All the things. Thank you guys for listening to You Bleeping Nerds. UBN. It's your boy A. And I'll see y'all next time, man. Thanks a lot. Peace.